This is an overview of the Winest estimating program. This is it right here on the desktop. I'm going to open it up and go over its different uses, how to use it, problems with it, and there it's opened up. This is the main screen, it's the takeoff screen. This is blank, there's nothing filled in here obviously. Some of the other tabs that you have are your sheet tab, which is broken down into different levels. You have your details by location, a summary page by location, labor breakdown, materials, your equipment breakdown, your sub breakdown. Back to the main takeoff page, you have your totals, you have a print button, a preview button, you'll have a save button, you have an add button. The add button adds your different items for your takeoff, and you have a construction calculator, does feet and inches, etc. I'm going to open up an old file, one that was recently completed, and go through it. It's Reserve Realty. You'll see that the estimate files are under Google Drive, under Winestimator 15, under Winest Estimates. If you ever need to find that, you go to Google Drive, you go down here to Winestimator 15, you go to Winest, you go to Estimates. We're going to open up Reserve Realty, go through the different items. Here's the item takeoff view with everything filled in, completed. And we'll go through all these different items. Here is the sheet tab. This is location by detail, so everything on the takeoff is separated into locations. This is the slab location, tells you basically everything you need to know about the slab, how many square feet, how many labor hours, the different materials that you're going to need, and the total material costs for those, total sub costs. There's your block cells, some rake block in this project, rake block cells, tie beams and columns, rake tie beams, and sidewalks. As you can see, everything on each location is separated, has your labor, your materials, your subs, your equipment, any other items, which there normally isn't any other items. And we'll go through all this, do a bid, and to see how all this stuff gets in there. This next tab is location summary, which is basically the same thing that's on this sheet, just summarized, not all broken down. And then you have your labor tab. We're still under the sheet tab here, labor. This tells you the different labor items and your labor rate, your hours, total. Materials, all of your different materials for the project listed. Your takeoff amounts, the unit that was used, whether it was square foot or each, or a lump sum, um, how much it is for how much it is per unit. Your unit is on this is each, so it's $140 each. Like this one is by square foot, so it's 8 cents per square foot. Waste, whether you want waste in there or not, and how many square feet or how many items there are. Like on each, there's 75 sheets of 2 by 8 by 3/4 inch plywood. They're $18 each. It's $1,350. Like on the termite spray, they're 8 cents each. It's 3,613 square feet at 8 cents each, $289.04. But everything in here is listed. It can be adjusted if need be. It can be deleted. You can add new items. And pretty much the same thing on equipment and your subs. And then back to the main takeoff page, you have your add button, which these are all your different assemblies, which we'll get into that here in a moment. And then also there are individual items under concrete, starting up here at the top. Most of these aren't used, but there's some that are, but most aren't. And then you have masonry. Again, only a few of these are used, and we'll get into all that. This is your location area where you can pick locations that are already already put in here, or you can add your own location. It's basically you're just naming different areas, so when you go back to look at your estimate at the end, you know what you're looking at and what area of the building you're looking at. Then you have the calculator. So the guts of the estimating program is really the database, and you have to understand the database. Right here basically are the two databases that are being used. You can only use one database at a time. The one currently being used has the one on it, that's resident. And there's another one that's called GenCon, which has more items in it. It's seldom used. Resident has most everything that you need into it. The only time I really ever gotten into the GenCon estimate is if I'm bidding stuff that's not concrete. It has some stuff in there like drywall and roofing and different things like that that we normally don't even get involved with, but sometimes, occasionally, we get goofy and get to bidding something that we probably shouldn't be bidding, and that's where we get the information for, at least to get started. And all the pricing in there is so old it has to be gone through and adjusted. But anyway, like I said, we're working on the resident database right now, and to get into the database, to the different items, you press items, and these are all the different items that are in the database. Again, like I said, there's a lot of them that I don't even use. I've never used, like this pile cap forms, but it's in there. But like concrete formwork, some of this stuff is used in the assemblies, like wall formwork labor. We'll just click it and we'll hit edit, and there's a lot of this stuff in here you'll never need to mess with. You just never mess with it. Let's oops. So these are all the different items, uh, like concrete reinforcement, rebar footings. This is one where most of the rebar comes out of. Footings, slabs, walls, columns, beams, dowels, wire fabric, chairs and brick. And we'll just go up here to rebar footings, click on the number 5 bars 40 foot long. We'll hit edit. We'll just look at what's in here. You know, it just tells you a description, a code for it, the formula. They're each, um, and what the price is for each of them. $24.20. There's a conversion factor to add for lap. There's a waste that's put in there for the 40 footers. I always carry waste on the 40 footers, and then it calculates basically what 2420 is times 5%, and gives you the 2710, which is what you're really charging for it. So we'll close that and we'll go back up here to database, and we'll look at assemblies. These are all the different assemblies. Let's pick the monolithic slab assembly and look at everything that's in it. This is one that's used a lot. As you can see, there's quite a don't worry about it. It just goes under the same old one as the last one that said Zerinsky Planners. Okay, this is the monolithic slab assembly main page, and all these different items make up the assembly. Like, the first item is to select your footing forms, and then there's a formula in here. So the length of the footing times the number of formed sides divided by 16, which is 16 feet. Most boards are 16 feet. Stakes, length of footing divided by 2. That's going to give you how many stakes. Recess material, the length of your recess divided by 12 for 12 feet. Concrete materials. Length of footing times width of footing times depth of footing probably going to have to click on this, look at it. Length of footing times width of footing times depth of footing plus the area of the concrete slab, say 3,000 square foot, times the depth of the concrete slab. And it automatically, because the smart units is pushed here, it automatically converts it to cubic yards, because the unit up here is cubic yards. Now you don't want to ever go in here and mess with this stuff. If you ever wanted to add stuff, you need to know how to add things, but most of the stuff for what we do, it's all already in here. So we'll hit close there. Concrete placement, this will be your pumping. It's pretty much the same formula. Select rebar, the length of footing times the number of bars in the footing divided by 40. Dowels, it's the number of dowels, it's an item you have to count. Corner bars, it's the number of corners times the number of bars. Footing chairs, the length of footing divided by 2. If you have transverse bars. But the biggest thing you want to know about in here, it goes through all these different items, is you have these formulas, and that's what makes this all work, are all these different formulas, which have been put in here a long time ago, and I don't even remember how I did it all. There was a whole book as to how to do it. Some of the stuff was in there, a lot of it had to be added, but anyway, you don't ever want to mess with these formulas. But it's probably important that you know that that's how all this works. It's basically a fancy spreadsheet, a real fancy spreadsheet. And there's the formulas tab, where there's lots of different items in here that we don't even use. Conditions, we don't mess with. Images, we don't mess with. Units, we don't really mess with. Manage item database. Update item prices. I've never used that. Update material price links. Never used that. You have new, if you're going to, I guess this would be if you're going to do a new database. Let's click it and see what happens. Yes, it's going to ask you for the database location and name, so wherever you would put it, and then whatever you're going to call it. And open. Here it tells us that the current one is resident, and there's also one called Gen Con, and then there's some old ones in here it's looking for that they're in here somewhere, but you don't want to use them because they won't work with this version of Winest. Like everything, it gets updated to a new version, and occasionally, actually this doesn't get updated very often, doesn't need updated. Now if you were to ever change computers, you would have to get with the Winest people and get the new software. You can't just transfer this into a new computer. You'd have to get with Winest, you'd have to get the software and have to get it in the new computer. You should be able to use the old databases or have them converted, so they'll work with the new version. They also, the way that it works right now is there's a USB stick plugged into the computer that lets you open this program. If it's not plugged into the computer, this program will not open. That's how they know that you paid for the software. They do have a service where you can pay annually. I don't remember the amount. Seemed like it was kind of expensive to constantly get updates and always be on their support system, and I never really used that. Um, the only time I've ever talked to the Winest people is whenever I've had to change computers and get the newest version and to put in the new computer. Okay, so let's see here. We went through this estimate. Whoops. We went through this estimate, the location details, the summary, the different items, and showed how everything gets populated. We didn't go through the totals page. This is the totals page where it tells you how much your labor was, your material was, how much for subs and how much for equipment, how many labor hours, and how many equipment hours, which whatever with that. And then it adds up these four items, gives you a net cost, and then on top of that you have your markups, I call them, for labor, subs, materials and equipment, overhead, and then it gives you a total of these items added to the net cost. So it's net cost plus these four items gives you 71,130. And then for some reason it then adds sales tax to your material and equipment prices. So this 2085 is 7% of your material prices up here. 28,314 times 7% is going to be this 2085. Then it adds this and this together to give you your total estimate with taxes, 73,215 for this job. Um, there are some other tabs on here I guess we should go through. There's standard, which changes that to look like that. I always like this alt standard, this look. There's also alt tabular that gives you this look. Um, and there's these buttons that I haven't looked at in a long time. I believe they're the same thing as if you double click in here and this comes up. Let's see what this does. Well, it's a little different, but this is where you can go in and change your percentages for labor. Like let's say on this job you wanted to change it to 50%. Like you said, 35%, that's not enough for this job. So you can either double click there and it comes right up and you can change it right there, and you just leave this clicked on labor. You don't mess with any of these. Now if you were to click on material, it's going to add 35% to your material too, although it says labor. So you want to be careful that you do not click on any of these other items unless you want to. And so we'll hit cancel on that. Same thing with subs. Click on subs, you can change your percentage there. You can see how subs is clicked here. Material and equipment. Material and equipment is clicked here, number 2 and 3. And there's your percentage. Your overhead is 18. And you can see the overhead is on everything: labor, material, equipment, and subs. Now if you had some other items, which I can't remember the last time I ever had any other items, if I see them in an estimate, I normally change them over to equipment or material or to one of these other items and get them out of the other column. And that's how you change those. Cancel on that. Tax, same thing. You can double click on it and change your tax percentage, and that would be on material and equipment. back to these buttons. The same thing here, that we just went through. I mean, you can add one if you want to. You could add one. You just go in here and add it. And we'll test here. Say it's a percentage 3%, and we'll say it's on material, and we'll put OK, and you can see it added it right there. And if I press OK, you can see it added 3% there, 3% of that, because the materials is 849. So we'll go up here and delete it. We'll just undo it. Actually, how do we want to delete it? Cancel. Hit cancel. Nope. We want to click it here, and we want to delete it. So we take that back out. There's a button here, add from database. I don't know what it is, never used it. As you can see, there's nothing in there. So if you want to add items, you just do it through the add button or double click in one of these rows. Or I guess just you hit the add button and you add it. You probably never have to do that, but press OK, and that gets us back to where that was. Push save. You can see when I made changes to the estimate, the save button came on. Now it has an auto save function where every so many minutes it auto saves, or a pop-up will come up asking you if you want to auto save. It's real important to save as often as possible, especially when you're adding these different items in here. If the computer loses power or something, you don't want to have to redo the whole estimate. Where were we at? Back over here at totals. But we looked at the net. The gross button is not used. Bonds, if you had a job with bonds, there is a way. There are bonds in the database, and that's something you really, I mean, you can use these buttons, but then you're going to want to get with a bond company and find out exactly how much your bond is and how it's priced out, and to make sure you get the right amount in your estimate. Subtotal button. The spreadsheet cursor must be on a gross markup, which we don't use, so whatever with that. And there's the tax, where you can go in and change your tax. And right here you can see it's applied to. They have these little symbols. It's like I don't know what they look like, a truck or something. A truck and a piece of paper. Somewhere else they're in here too. I don't remember where, but whatever with that. So that's the totals button, and if we go back to item takeoff, we talked about the save and print. Let's say you were over here on this estimate sheet on the location details and you wanted to print this so you could have it on paper in front of you. You hit the print button, it comes up. This is on Winest printer. It's already set up for come on. It's already set up to print on landscape and in black, so all you really have to do is just hit OK and it will print this out. There's a preview to see what it's going to look like. It'll print this out looking just like that. This is already all set up in here. If you wanted to make some changes, you could by hitting style and changing margins, but you don't really want to do that. Close that. And there's a preview button, shows the same thing we just looked at, and you can print right from the preview button. Where are we at here? Okay, so we went over the takeoff sheet, we went over the location details estimate sheet, we have the totals tab we went over, guess the other thing is we also have all of these buttons are pretty much up here also. You know, where you can save. Um, you can do a lot of different other things in here that's on these tabs. Really don't even get use these toolbar up here, or menu bar, whatever they call them, except when I might get into the databases. That's about it. I mean, this software does a lot of different things. Um, it's quite fancy, quite detailed, but I try to keep it very simple. There's the database tab, which we looked into that. Reports, it does a lot of different reports, but because we're not using all the fancy items on it, I really don't pay attention to them too much either. And then you have a help button. So that's a basic overview of the Winest program. Um, Next we'll get into doing an actual estimate and adding items, and to get into some of the potential problems and things that have to be adjusted, and um, just to learn how to use it properly without having any major mistakes.